Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's so great to be with you. I'm going to move this out just a little bit if I can. And man, it's just great to be in Michigan in the fall. I know we're not officially fall yet, but it feels like fall today. And I grew up here. I don't know if some of you may know that, may not know that, but this is, I think I grew up, it's about 25 minutes from here. And so it's like coming home. And even more so, being able to come to Bridgewood because there's a relationship here. And everybody in Michigan is just so amazing. I don't live here anymore, so I get to say that. I had to hang out in Ohio yesterday. I was in Cleveland yesterday, and it was so tough. It was like, man, I'm kind of secretly watching the U of M game, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing," because they're just going to razz me, So it's just great to come home and be a part, but especially at Bridgewood, you guys have been such an important partner to us. Pastor Kurt, thank you. You and Christy have been amazing. The staff here, and over the years, just the relationships we have, it really does feel like coming home. So thanks so much. And just a little update. I'm so grateful for really what God is doing, not only through our ministry and our family. I want to just pause and say that my wife and I both. There's my wife and I when we were back in Germany with Caleb and Michaela. You guys were so gracious to send them out to do ministry with us to the military as we were working with chaplains there during that time. But then that next photo, I just got to touch a little bit on that. That lower right-hand corner, can I just say those girls are amazing. And many of you, you have been so gracious to my granddaughters. And all of you who've watched them, held them, thank you so much. Keep doing it for us because we don't have the opportunity all the time to be close to them, so thank you so much. It's kind of fun to come to a church where your kids are, on staff. It's kind of fun. So wasn't the worship amazing this morning? I biased, but it was awesome because and it's not just what's happening up here, but it's embracing what is happening out here too. So Caleb and Michaela, we're so proud of them and so grateful that they're here to be, or are able to be here with you and ministering with you and reaching this community. My son Keith, he's still in Special Forces training. He's wrapping up. It's a 2-year program. He came out of Ranger Regiment after deploying to Afghanistan 3 times. And he was selected to come and be a part of that, so that was pretty cool. We're really proud of him. And he and his wife, they have, of course, their 2 kids. So we have 4 grandkids, crazy. And they're getting ready to have another baby, like, in the next 10 days. And it's a girl, another girl. So 3 boys, 4 granddaughters. I mean, this is great. By the way, does anybody have any property? I'm looking for a pony farm. I want to kind of raise that up. Yeah, some of you have girls, you get what I mean. So trying to figure out ways to do this with my girls. And then my youngest son, Clay, he and his wife Amanda, they got married last December. He just got his Ranger tab, just finished Ranger school. So proud of them. We got 2 Ranger tab guys, so we're so proud. And people ask, said, "Oh, your boy's in the military. It's so awesome. You must be so proud." I said, "Hey, I'm proud of all my boys." So I'm telling you, when you're in the ministry, like Caleb and Michaela, you got to navigate a whole lot more, much more landmines than I think that sometimes the military guys do. So it's awesome. We're just really grateful, and we're very, very blessed, and so grateful that again, family-wise, we can be connected with you. Little touch point on what's happening with Network 21.1. We are really excited about this last year. We were able to add 2 new languages, Italian and German. And you may say, well, that's kind of interesting. Why wouldn't you? That seemed like that would be on your top. We're up to 17 languages now. And we're shooting for 20 languages by the end of next year that we're actually ministering the gospel in over 242 countries. You say, well, there's a whole lot more languages that around the world. There are, but the top 10 languages in the internet, those are the ones we focused on first. So the people who are using languages, you'd be surprised. Like people that live in maybe Jordan, we have Spanish responses from Jordan, believe it or not. In fact, we have Spanish responses from over 198 different countries. Is that crazy? And you think about that. There's only like 27 speaking Spanish countries, but they're everywhere. The world is no longer bound by geographical boundaries. We've got cultures the world is a melting pot. It's just crazy. And so the internet has had a lot to do with that. And so we live big and large in that area, and we are privileged to share the gospel. When many people find themselves in crisis, they Google it, they YouTube it, they're looking for answers, and God has enabled us to allow Christ to be the center of many of those people as they click on an ad that says, "Hey, there's hope for your journey. Why not?" Boom, they click, and then we introduce Christ as the answer. And so many people are responding. So over 37 million presentations of the gospel since 2008. Pretty exciting. Last time I was with you, that was around 33. So we're gaining, and every year we're gaining some terrific ground there. 1.7 million people have made an evangelism response. They've made some type of a decision for Jesus to either engage in a conversation with one of our many connectors. By the way, when they engage in our websites, it's not a static website. In fact, we don't have websites. We have interactive online communities. Now, that's not a spin. I mean, so like, oh, whatever, it's a website, you know. No, it's actually an interactive online community because, believe it or not, when people pull this thing out right here, or they pull out their tablet, there are people, especially 45 on down, and I hate to say it, Kurt, we're not in that group anymore, sorry, but 45 on down, this is community. There are so many people, this is what they do in building relationship. It's not just this face-to-face thing, and it's so different from when I grew up, you know, and so we're living big and large there and really believing God to help us. And as we engage those people, they're discovering the answer that Christ is the only one that has hope. And they're making decisions. And out of that, we're seeing that many people respond. It's pretty awesome. And then over 309,000 people we've literally connected to directly and have got them involved in some type of discipleship community, faith community, a church around the world. And I say there's differences because when we contact people in Jordan or Saudi Arabia or in Pakistan, you know, those are pretty sensitive countries. The Maldives, Morocco, those are areas where, you know, the church doesn't live big and large there. So we find faith communities, pockets, sometimes the underground church. We help them make those connections. And it's changing lives. And you are a big part of that. Every dollar that you've given to us this last year, and they've been many, and thank you, Pastor Kurt, again, every dollar right now, it's about 24 people that we can reach with every single dollar. That's an amazing ROI, right? I call it ROEI, return not on investment, but return on your eternal investment, because this is eternal things that are taking place in lives that are changing. So thank you again for all of what you're doing. So that takes me to where we're going to talk about the Warrior's Journey. These are our latest statistics. Now, listen, I want you to do something for me. How many of you, just show of hands, how many of you know either you yourself or you're connected to someone directly related to, or you're a close friend of someone who has served or is currently serving in the military? Just raise your hand and look around. Wow. Okay, look around. So help me with this. I'm going to share a couple numbers, but before I do, close your eyes. Okay? When you think of that person that you just raised your hand, I want that person's face. Just visualize their face right now in your heart. Okay, open your eyes. All right, now listen. I'm going to share some numbers with you, but the people that you know, the people that you connected, that face that was just in your mind, remember, we're talking about people here, just like the people you know. And it's so important because as we share statistics, we can't lose the story of the person, the individual, because God is concerned about every single person. And every person has a purpose and call in their life, right? So think about this. We've had in the military less than 3 years. It'll be 3 years this October that we launched this crazy site, this online interactive community for military members and their families. We've had over almost 500,000 presentations of the gospel, over 480,000. Is that just crazy? And we were hoping, folks, literally, we were hoping for like 10,000. That was our number. You know, maybe 500 a month. You know, we're connecting with over 500 people a day. It's just been insane. So there's a super strong, even stronger than we knew. The need is so great, so grand, and God is helping us. Responses. So people have made an evangelism response, a decision to do something with Jesus, over 22,000. And out of that, we've connected 2,100 people to faith communities, organizations, discipleship processes where we're engaging with them one-on-one. And I'm telling you, lives are being changed. And many of those, out of that 29, 57 of those individuals were people who contacted us this year and they were going to end their life. They were done. And every single one of those people, so thankful to God, they're not only still alive, but they're living for Christ. And God has changed the direction of their life. And God is making a dent. So God is good. Amen. Amen. The suicide issue is kind of the ultimate extreme of what happens in the lives of these people. Isolation is the number one problem, that leading to family brokenness and other issues that lead to PTSD, of course. We heard all about that. That's like number 10. It's still an issue. But there's just a series of unique issues to military members, and so we're focusing on those, and those are the statistics. Now, one of the things that we've done this year is we had a grant from Teed Up for the Troops. They said, hey, we love what you guys do. We want to just send you some money, and we didn't plan for that money, but we did have a plan for something when the money came, and one of those was to actually create a new format in our website. You said, are you kidding me? You're not even 3 years old and you have to create a new format. But we redid the whole website. Here's why. We started with about 800 different articles on issues, video testimonies, engagement stories, podcasts, and so on. That's great, but we're publishing 2 to 3 articles a day. We've got over 20 writers that are writing for us all the time, sharing military stories, military testimonies. And there's nothing more powerful than an individual person saying, listen, I've been where you are, and here's how Jesus changed my life. There's power in the story. So we capitalize that. So if you go to our website, you'll just read these stories, and they're so amazing. So now we've got over 5,000 of these stories and video testimonies, and so we just weren't managing it very well, so we had to reformat the site so people could use it better, and it just is much better layout, much easier to find stuff, instead of like walking into a warehouse and going like, where do I go, right? Saying, okay, well, here's my issue, that's where I need to go. And so we're helping people, and already as we launched the site just a few weeks ago, we're seeing our traffic has picked up, we're seeing a lot more engagement, so we're really, really grateful for Teed Up for the Troops as they came and gave us that ability. And then that has led to then the development of more curriculum. Like I said, we have writers that are writing all kinds of amazing small group curriculum issues for us or materials for us. Right now we have about 3 years of small group curriculum. So say if a church wants to start a small group in their church for veterans, they say, we just don't know what to do. There's just no curriculum. Yeah, there is. We can help you out. In fact, we get about 3 years worth of stuff, and by the time you get to that 3 years, or end of that, we'll probably have another 3 years because we're working on some more stuff. And it's stuff not just for guys, but for gals too, for families, for kids. All of that's embracing. Now, one of our writers, Dean Benura, he's one of our top writers. He's an amazing guy. He wrote a book called Beyond Trauma, and he gave it to us, and he said, I want to give this to the Warrior's Journey. I don't want to publish it for me. I want to publish it for a ministry. We created a workbook and a facilitator's guide. It's an 18-week intensive series on helping people come out of moral injury issues, spiritual injury issues, combat trauma type stuff. Because it is an issue. So we launched it, and through a series of events that I really don't have time to tell you, but divine appointments. I'm telling you, these divine appointments have been amazing. We get a call from the Intrepid Center, the Invisible Wound Center out of Pensacola, Florida. It's the Naval Center that's sponsored by and completely funded by the Department of Defense. And they said, look, we're dealing with 500-600 people a year that come through. That's an intensive time. They come in. Some of it's actually in-house stuff where they have psychologists, psychiatrists. They have an intensive series of how to help these non-functioning individuals, men and women who have been through military combat, to help them to function, to get back into the world and come on board. Some of them are amputees. Some of them have lost so much. They said, but we realize we're missing an element, and it's part of our doctrine. If you look at our DNA doctrine, our mission, our vision statement, we talk about physical, mental, and we have spiritual. But here's the problem. When it comes to the spiritual side, we say, hey, go pray about it. That's about all we know how to say, because we don't know what to do. In fact, we don't even know what spiritual means. How do you spell spiritual? They were very open, very honest, and they said, so we got wind of this Beyond Trauma thing, and one of our directors got a hold of a copy. This is pretty good stuff. Like Gordon Conwell, they actually gave their stamp of approval for it. And this is pretty good stuff. Would you be willing for us to use this for our curriculum, and we'll pay for it? They had me at pay for it. That was really good, So it was like, yes, we'll help. We'd love to do that. It's amazing. And so they jumped on board, and they're beginning to use this as their exclusive curriculum for spiritual resiliency and helping soldiers and airmen and sailors to find Christ. And the DOD is paying for it. Are you listening to what I'm saying here? I mean, this is pretty cool. Very excited about that. So all of that leads to these grand resources, these services that we're offering, podcasts, free gifts and resources for churches. It's just really cool. Another thing, this is another way that, this is why we're not just a website, okay? This is really cool. So in Germany, in June 1st, we opened up a coffee shop in Germany. Yeah, just because, why not, So how it worked out, we had a retired Chief Master Sergeant, an E9 in the Air Force. He gets out of the Air Force several years ago, goes to Bible school, then he goes to seminary. He's finishing his doctorate this month of ministry and feels called to go back to Germany where he served for over 17 years at Landstuhl Hospital. He was a cardiopulmonary specialist. 25,000 cases, this guy. He would go to the battlefield, pick them up off the battlefield. These guys who were shot up, torn up, sometimes having his hands inside their chest, massaging their hearts to get them to launch stool, just to keep them alive so we could save these guys. And by the time he was done, he was messed up. He had some issues. And he said, man, if it wasn't for Jesus, I don't know what I would have done. But he had such a heart for that community. And he said, what I'd like to do, he says, God has enabled me to save some money. He had a little bit of an inheritance. You know, he came into some money. And he said, I believe I'm supposed to come to the Warrior's Journey, partner with you guys, and would you let me run a coffee shop if I, pay for 3/4 of it? We can raise the rest, which we did. And he said, can we make this a Warrior's Journey project? Yeah, I think we could do that. Love to do that. And so the course of this last year, we've been building. He got an amazing little shop right downtown in Launch Jewel. By the way, this is like 4 miles from Ramstein Air Base, where there are 80,000 military members and their families, right? And Launch Jewel Hospital is literally 500 yards away. It's like a couple blocks away. So families are now coming, and this coffee shop we opened up, and it's just been explosive. We're offering 6 to 7 workshops every night, 6 days a week, ministering to our military members who are active duty overseas where there hasn't been anything prior to that before. And so it's just exploded. By the way, into 4 weeks, we were hoping that somehow the coffee sales would help supply the need to pay for everything. Well, we thought it would take 6 months. In the 5th week, it's paying for itself. People love coffee, thank goodness. It's like, so we keep praying. It's pretty cool. So thank you for your prayers on that. That's just another way. Awesome stuff happening there. So next slide. A couple of quick things here. So other things that have been happening since I last saw you, military-friendly church workshops. We're doing these across the nation now. Churches are saying, look, we really need help. We want to take care of our military, but we don't know what to do. A guy in Dothan, a pastor in Dothan, in fact, he's on our N21, number 21 board. He calls and says, hey, I'd love to do this because we have a lot of military. I said, well, how many military people do you have? He said, we've got at least 7 families. And I said, well, wait a minute, you're right by Fort Rucker. How far is Fort Rucker from you? Oh, maybe 15 miles. I said, listen, you've got more than 7 families, I bet. He said, yeah, maybe that's possible. I said, do me a favor. When you go to church on Sunday, right before you preach, do a survey, ask how many people are connected to the military, just like we did a minute ago. And he said, we had over 70%. He said, I had no idea. He goes, I'm so ashamed because we just haven't focused on this. And so we're helping to bring awareness to pastors, but then equipping them to become a military-friendly church by helping to develop ministries within the church to meet the needs of the people that God's entrusted to them. We're so excited about that. As well as honor events. This is another thing. We're coming up on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, or any time throughout the year. How many of you are veterans? Stand to your feet. Love you. God bless you. Thanks for your service. Okay, let's move on, right? Which is great. Nothing wrong with that. And I'm thankful whenever people are recognizing veterans. But why not do a little bit more? Why not invite the veterans, maybe some of them who are down and out in your community that would really think about coming to church if you met their need because because of what they've given to this country. Why not honor them? Why not draw them in? So we've developed a whole program. And Kurt, I'm really excited about this. Right now we have 37 honor events scheduled for November. We're really excited about this. And so it's just another way for us to resource other churches. So one last thing, this is the most exciting thing, and I'm going to dive into the message here this morning. And I promise I'm not going to keep you long. So DoD chaplaincy, we have dedicated ourselves to working with military chaplains, unlike most veteran service faith-based organizations, because they see the chaplains as a competition, or they don't necessarily think that the chaplains are that effective, which there's some truth to that. They've struggled over the years. But we said, hey, why wouldn't we work with some of the most influential, opportune people? They have the biggest opportunities to work with military people one-on-one because they're military and they're there to share God's love, right? So why not invest in them? So we did. Over the course of these years, we've just really focused on this. And so what happened was we had some developments through relationships that we went to last October. This is all because of last October, because you helped us by sending Caleb and Michaela. We had a small group of chaplains with a specific small denominational group. It was about 20 chaplains. It was still significant. We were able to minister to them. And it just so happened that the one of the people in the group that was a part of that particular denominational factor, that's not a very good word, he was and he is the command chaplain for all of Europe. So his commanding general comes to him several months ago and says, hey, Chappie, we got a problem here. This is the 21st theater. This is Europe, AFRICOM, and all of NATO forces. Pretty big group of people, right? He says, in this group of people, there are 200 chaplains. And he says, I know, chaplain, you know about this, but we have 6 individuals that are facing UCMJ charges, chaplains. We're talking about a couple of them are criminal charges. Some of them are abuse charges. Some of those are fraud charges. But he says a few of these guys are not only going to be exiting the military, but many of these will be potentially looking at jail time. And he said, I got to think, this is the commanding general, right? Okay, 3-star general. He says, I got to thinking about this. If our chaplains are having this kind of trouble, I got to believe that this is probably more pandemic as it relates to the rest of our team. Let's get our chaplains where they need to be. We don't take very good care of you guys. He said, I don't care what it costs. Have a retreat. Let's start investing in them. Let's start pouring into them. Let's start giving them some resiliency training. Let's help them do what they do by helping them be all they can be and stop burning them out. And so he's like, that's great. Thank you, sir. We need to do that. So who does he call? He calls me and says, hey, Kevin, I got an opportunity. Can you bring a Warriors Journey team and do a 5-day care to the caregiver retreat for our military chaplains? And I said, absolutely. We'd love to do that. He said, now, I assume that you can do this. Oh, yeah, we can absolutely do this. Never done it before, and he's like, well, what kind of success have you had in the past? I said, well, let me get back to you on that, okay? So I said, I'm going to get with Chap McChrystal. I said, we'll have a proposal to you in 24 hours. Hung up the phone. Chap McChrystal, who's on our team now, General McChrystal is his brother. He's a retired chaplain on our team, just awesome guy. I pulled him in. I said, hey, this is our opportunity. What do you think? He's like, you told him what? We could do what? We've never done this before. I said, I know. Let's just sit down, though. I know we can do this. So we pulled in a couple of our partners, CoachNet Global. They offer coaching services and assessments, behavioral assessments, high-level stuff that's really, really effective. We pulled in General Magruder, who has a team called True Growth, and they do DoD contracts for war colleges across the nation. And I knew that they had lost some of their contracts, and he had some time, and I thought maybe we can convince him to be a part of this too. Let's be a team of teams, and let's create a kind of an all-star group here, and let's do something with this. And so we got these people on a phone, and we went through, and it was like God ordained. God put this schedule together. It was amazing. And it all came together, put it on paper, about $140,000. To make it all happen with all the materials and everything else we needed to do and travel. Sent that off to Scott Hammond, who was the command chaplain, and he calls back 2 hours later and says, the general approved it. You guys are in. We're going to do this. When can you come? I said, when do you need us? He goes, like in 3 weeks. I'm like, okay, we're there. So that was about 4 weeks ago. We actually went and did this retreat. And we're like, and I'm telling you, I was nervous, because it's one thing to get a contract. It's another thing to deliver, and really make it powerful. And we said, focus. We got to focus on Jesus. And these were chaplains from all denominations, right? Including Jewish and Muslims. But guess what? We told them, we're coming to talk about Jesus. We hope that's all right, because we're not compromising on that. They said, whatever you want to do, we don't care. Make it happen, we already paid for it, so make it happen, So we did, and it was awesome, and these guys were just so good, and we could just see them, their families, their wives. God was doing miraculous things with these individuals. I'll just say this. It was a great time of reset and renewal for individuals who have given so much. And we're so excited because they came back, and we're doing ongoing coaching with them. We're doing webinars to keep the thing going. We're doing some follow-up. But they came back and said, this was so amazing, we're going to be telling others about this. So we get a call a few weeks ago from the 8th Command commanding general in South Korea. All of South Korean forces, hey, we heard what you did in Germany. You need to do that here. When can you get here? Well, when do you want us? How about the first week of December? We're going to South Korea. Okay, so this is really great. So listen, though, I want you to understand something. The DoD, the Department of Defense, they're paying for it. So isn't this great? And that's one thing. And we're able then, this is really cool. So we're able to say that the Warriors Journey is now an endorsed Department of Defense faith-based ministry. That's kind of like an oxymoron, but it's really cool. It's really cool. But even more importantly, this is the most important thing, is that we get to be influential and pour into some of the most influential people in the military, our chaplains that now can hopefully be encouraged to step out in faith like never before as we're encouraging them. So please, your support, listen, your partnership is making this happen. So be encouraged by that. I hope you sense that that we got a lot of stuff coming on. That goes to our partners. If you go to our partners, and you can see this on our website, I won't spend a lot of time, over 42 now other partnerships that we have. When we can't help an individual, we put our arm around them and said, we're going to go find help, and we'll be with you through every step of the process. And God is using this in a mighty way. So all of that to say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you will, would you give God a hand for his work and what he's doing for you? Amen. Amen. All right, so I only have a few more minutes, but I want to share just a couple thoughts from the book of Philippians. If you have your Bibles, you can turn there. I'm going to share just a few kind of select scriptures from each of them. But all of this, well, we work with individuals with the Warriors Journey especially. We're finding that a lot of times people come to us in crisis. They're dealing with issues that they do not know what to do because they can't control it. They've come to a place where they don't know where to turn because it's something that they can no longer influence. And I don't know where you are today. I just know this, that as I'm a human being, you're a human being, we're all human beings here, right? We have issues that we cannot control. You can wake up every day of the week and say, here's what I'm going to do today, but that is all, that's just a gamble. You can say you want to do something, but whether you get the opportunity to do it is really in God's hands ultimately. Whether we know Jesus or not, that's the truth for everyone because we cannot control life. We can't. And we're all going to face situations that we just have to manage. So in that, perception becomes everything. How I perceive my life, how I perceive my friends, how I perceive my family, how I perceive the circumstances that I can no longer really necessarily mitigate or manipulate in a way that is favorable to me. And I think if we're all honest here this morning, we have a tendency to focus on ourselves. How do we make that good for me? Right? Now, there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself, working out, feeding yourself. There's nothing wrong with all that. But we get so distracted to say that, hey, let's make life as comfortable as possible and as exciting as possible and as pleasurable as possible, right? How many of you wake up in the morning and say, I hope I really have to navigate something that is going to be life challenging today? I hope I experience something that's so devastating I just don't know what to do. That would be so exciting, that would be so great. Maybe today will be the day. No, we don't do that. That's not what we do. And yet, so much of life is filled with that kind of stuff. You'd think that we would learn and be better prepared. And even better, why would we have the perception that really creates the kind of reality that makes a difference? So let me say this, that for me, I'm learning this process. This is such a journey for me. And over the course of this last year, it's been rough personally because I've done a lot of travel. I've averaged about 9 days a month in my own bed the last 12 months. It's been busy. And in fact, I was sharing that with a gal that she was getting on the plane, and she was saying, this is so hard. This is like my fifth travel time for my job this year since January. And I'm like, that's tough. She talked about she's a single mom. She's got a couple of kids. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I get it, and being young and just trying to find out your career, I'm just kind of listening to her going, yeah, that's really tough. She goes, so do you travel a lot? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, how much do you travel? Well, kind of like you, it's a lot. She's, well, how much do you really travel? And I said, well, it's a lot more than you, but she's like, how do you do it? And I told her I added it up. I said, well, this will be like my 119th plane trip, since January, and I've been in 21 countries, 31 states, and yeah, it's been a busy year, and I'm kind of thinking about that. It's like, wow, it's been really busy. And she's just looking at me like, you're like an idiot. Like, you need to get a new job. What's wrong with you? And I said, well, Mike, you're married? Well, what does your wife have to say? She started getting mad at me, and I'm like, take it easy. It's like, it's okay. Then I started thinking, you know what? Then I started thinking, well, you know what? Maybe I do deserve better. So I got on the plane, I opened my Bible, and I'm just kind of thinking, God, I kind of feel bad that I haven't been home. So this is why I just happened to turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And I started reading this little passage. You don't have to turn, I'll just read it to you, okay? Paul says, I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, been exposed to death again and again. 5 times I received from the Jews 40 lashes, minus 1. Thank goodness for that. 3 times I was beaten with rods, once pelted with stones, 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my fellow Jews, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, in danger from false believers. I've labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food completely. I've been cold and naked. Whoa, okay, Paul, thanks for the mental image. And besides everything else, I face daily the pressures of all the churches that God has bestowed upon me as he's entrusted these people's eternal lives upon my life. So I'm reading that and I'm going, God, I'm good. I'm good. Because here's the deal. I've not experienced any of that. In fact, when people come to me and they say, oh, life's so hard, really? Well, here's a passage, read that. And then tell me, how hard is your life really? Paul was a messed up dude. You know, when I'm thinking about Paul, what he went through, and I tell this to military members, listen, you read that. Even combat guys that have been like seasons. Some of these guys have been on multiple deployments, 17, 18 deployments. They read that and they go, yeah, I haven't done that. That guy must have had some pretty serious PTSD. Think about it. Paul should have been the most devastated individual on the planet because of what he endured for God. Think about it. And yet, PTSD wasn't even in his vocabulary. This is a guy who's like, I'm good. In fact, I rejoice. Paul, what is going on with you? How is that possible? And yet, I don't know that that's inspiring necessarily all the time, but it should be. So listen, it's all about what we perceive. It's our perception. And all this is related to this idea of perspective. Okay, so let me give you the definition of perspective. It is the art of representing a three-dimensional objects, two-dimensional surfaces, is to give the right impression to their height, their depth, position, and relation to each other. That's right perspective. A scope of giving a thing or a circumstance, a scope of it all. Or, this is where I think becomes very much at home to you and I, a particular attitude to a way regarding something or a point of view. What is our window of view, right? What is that? Well, I think, to make this really very simple, we can rely on three different things when it comes to our perspective. I can rely on what I think and what I feel about the things that I experience. So when, Pastor Kurt, yesterday, when you have this crazy thing happen at your house, I'm so sorry, brother, and 2 floors are flooded, and you're like, oh, praise God, this is awesome. I'm sure you didn't respond that way, you know. And we won't talk about language or anything, but, hey, we all struggle. Even pastors struggle, right? It's like, you know, when something like that happens, it can all be about what I think. And it's typically, I'm going to be honest with you, that's about where I live 96% of the time. My wife told me, she said, you shouldn't say that. It's about 99% of the time. So we just have a tendency to default to this. How is this going to affect me? What does this mean for me? My plans, right? Or here's a second way. We can get a little bit more open about it and say, well, I can rely on what others feel and think about the things I experience. I can get people's help. Hey, what do you think I should do? Family, friends, right? Or we could get real here because perception is reality, and if we really believe God is who he says he is, we really believe God lives in our life the way we think he does, the way we sing about, pray about, worship about, and as a Christian have a creed that we live by, we could do this. I could rely on, when it deals with circumstances that I can't control, on what God knows best about the things that I experience and say, God, what do you want to do in this? Okay, got real quiet. I'm not trying to make this heavy, but let's just be honest. Now, I'm with you, okay? I'm with you on this. How many of you, when something challenging happens, that's where you go? Okay, God, this is cool. What's going to happen next? Okay, I fly to Atlanta. Last week, I had to be in California for one of our biggest fundraising events that we do at Network. My son just so happened to say, hey, by the way, Dad, I'm finishing Ranger School. I'm going to graduate Friday. Last week, he said, I'm going to graduate. Great. That's exactly what I'm doing the presentation for the biggest fundraising event for our ministry. Man, I'm not going to be able to make this. He said, well, Dad, I'm going to have a pass on Wednesday. Maybe if you come, I could see you on Wednesday. We could hang out a little bit. That would mean a lot to me. I'm there. Well, I had to be Wednesday night in California. So I fly Tuesday night to Atlanta. I drive I get to Fort Benning like really early in the morning, and I can't wait because I'm going to see my son from 8 o'clock till noon, 8 in the morning till noon, right? And then I'm going to drive back to Atlanta, fly to California so I can be at my event. So I drive to there, waiting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and what does Clay say? He calls me from a payphone and says, hey, Dad, I got bad news. They said we have to check in equipment. Not going to happen. Not going to be able to see you. But I'm going to be out like at 12:30. Could you wait? I'm like, dude, my plane leaves at 2. I got to leave. He's like, oh, okay, I'm really sorry. I'll be honest. I'm driving back to the airport, man. I'm weepy. You know, it's hard. I was like, this is really like one of the most important things in it. When you get a Ranger tab, some of you get this. Tell me if you get this, okay? It's a big deal, right? I wanted to be there to support my son. Now, Kyan was flying in. She was going to be there. It just made me feel really bad. So I'm feeling bad, sorry for myself, flying all the way there, blah, blah, blah. I didn't do the part where it said, God, what could be happening here, right? So, God, what do you have in mind for this? This just seems like a big waste. So I get in the plane to Dallas, Atlanta, Dallas to John Wayne Airport in Anaheim, California. And guess who I sit next to? I sit next to the vice president of Prudential. And I said, oh, that's really nice. So what region are you part of? No, I'm vice president of Prudential Insurance Company. He's like, you mean like a region, like in California? No, Prudential, the company. I'm number 2. I'm like, dude, that's pretty cool. That's amazing. So he starts asking me, what do you do? Long conversation, cut that short. It was awesome. He's like intrigued. He said, I think I want to give to your ministry. I'm like, really? Well, maybe he has the means to do that. I don't know, you know. That might be helpful. And he tells me, he says, in the course of conversation, I'll give you a little idea. He says, yeah, the only thing about living in Southern California, I live in Newport Beach, and I pay $65,000 a year in property taxes for my house. He goes, it's really terrible. I said, $65,000 a year? I said, yeah, it's 1.6%, value of your home, so they hose you. And I'm like doing the math going, he said, no, I can afford it. It's no big deal. And then it's like, and I want to support your ministry. So I get off the plane and God says, that's what I had in mind here. I'm like, okay, that's really great, but I really do miss my son, God. He's like, I know, and it's all going to be good. I'm going to take care of that. He said, but I've got a lot of things going here. I'm like, all right. I guess the Lord knows what he's doing, right? So this is Paul. Now, very quickly, okay, I'm gonna share a few things, but it really starts about our thoughts of God. Listen, the most important thing to any of us is what we think about God. Here's what A.W. Tozer said. He wrote this in his book, Knowledge of the Holy. I love this quote. What comes to our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. That is so true, because what you think about God shapes everything else. If you know what a person really believes in his or her heart, what God is like to them, who he is to them, you will be able to predict with, I believe, certainty, their spiritual future. It's true, because what we think about God determines everything. If we exercise our faith, our trust, all of that's determined on how big we think God is, how wonderful we think he can do it. If we get it wrong about that, and we get everything else right, guess what? We get everything wrong, because we miss all that God can do. Perspective is everything. It's everything. Now, let's just share very briefly what Paul said. This is what Paul said. This is Philippians. I love this. Paul's in prison. He's about to get executed. He's not sure, but he's really looking at possibly giving his life for his faith because he wasn't guilty of anything. He's chained to a Roman guard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He's been in this state for 3 years. Think about that. The Philippian church, they're pretty concerned for him. They write him a letter. They send Epaphroditus to deliver the letter along with an offering. And they say, Paul, we're concerned about you. How can we help? And here's how he responds. He says this, and I'm just going to share the bold parts of this. He goes, I'm sure of this, that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. And it's right for me to feel this way. He says this, in my imprisonment and in my defense and confirmation of the gospel, it is my prayer that your lover may abound. It may abound more and more in the knowledge and discernment as Jesus gives that to you. This is what Paul says to you. You know what I would have been saying? Get me a lawyer. Get me out of this place. If you guys can send me an offering so I can do something. Paul says, no, this isn't it. Here's his perspective. Look at the second part. He says, I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. It's become known to the whole imperial guard. and the rest of those who are in this city, that I am in bondage for Christ. Think about this, Paul's perspective. He was excited about the opportunity because it opened a door for him to influence the most influential guards and people in that city. These are the elite soldiers of Caesar. So think about it. What's worse? Being a person chained to a Roman guard and in prison, like Paul, or being a pagan, heathen guard chained to the Apostle Paul? Think about it. Are you getting what I'm saying here? Paul's like, oh, this is going to be good. I have a captive audience. He was leading these guys to the Lord. In fact, if you look at the end of the book, he's giving all his thing. Thank God these people are saying these greetings. Send greetings. Oh, by the way, Caesar's household, they say hi too. I mean, these guys were actually coming to faith because Paul believed that he was positioned for that moment. And that's why he was able to do what he did. Listen, perspective drives our passion. It does. Paul's passion was this, and yes, I rejoice for through all these prayers and help of the Spirit through Christ, this will turn out as my deliverance, as is my eager expectation and the hope that I will not be ashamed, but that I will, in full courage, now as always, Christ will be honored in my body, whether in life or by death. For to me to live is Christ. It doesn't matter what I face, doesn't matter what my circumstance, it's going to be about Jesus. Jesus, how can you leverage this for your glory? And to die, hey, that's awesome. I get to go to heaven. Wow, that's a great perspective. And passion then dictates our devotion. It does. You're devoted to the things you're passionate about. You may think you're devoted to Jesus. I may think I'm devoted to Jesus, but I hope I can say that I am based on how this plays out, right? Here's Paul's devotion. He says, if I'm to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labor. Look at the bold part there. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary for you on your account. I could die. I could go be with God. In fact, he says, my desire is to be with Christ. That's better, but it's actually better for me to be here. I love you so much that when I leave this place, I want to take you with me. That's his desire. So his passion dictated his devotion. He wasn't devoted to his own 401k, that's it. Yeah, we all have one of those, right? I'm not devoted to my lake house, even though if you have one, it's great. There's nothing wrong with that, but does that thing dictate some distraction for me? It didn't for Paul. He said, I'm not devoted to building my life here on this earth. I'm devoted to bringing as many people as I can to a way of life that has changed me from the inside out. And that leads to that devotion. Really is amazing because that devotion, you can skip to the second slide. Go to the next one there. Is it really dictates to his actions. What an amazing thing. His literal behavior matched up with his words. The way that he expressed himself literally came from his worship. He didn't just sing it on Sunday morning, folks. He lived it, and he did it every day. And here's the thing, and it wasn't easy because he struggled the same way we struggle. He just decided that he was going to think about God being bigger than maybe we do at times. He says, listen, this is what drives me. Paul's actions are driven by this passage. He says, do nothing. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, he says, do nothing from selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility, count others more significant than yourselves. Wow. Can you imagine if we all did that? It would really be different, wouldn't it? I believe our lives would be different. I believe our church would only be better and better as we commit ourselves to that. He said, let each of you not look to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. Have this mind among yourselves. What mind? Which is yours in Christ Jesus, who though he's comparing us now to Christ, right? Here's our example. He was in the form of God, did not count equality with God something to be grasped, but he emptied himself, Jesus did for us. Taking form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself, becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. That's what God calls us to. So listen, I can rely on what I think about, I can rely on what others think about, or I can rely on what God thinks. But it all depends on what I think about God first. There's no one like you. We could say that. I dedicate myself to your love. We can sing that. I dedicate myself to your purposes. We can believe that. But unless we embrace it, unless we wrap our arms around it, no matter what the circumstance we face, it doesn't become real to others that God has entrusted to us. It's only then that we experience God on a level that is life-changing, not only for us, but for the people that God has surrounded us by. I want you to do me a favor. We're going to close. Would you stand to your feet? Would you do this? And as we close in this song, if you're like me, I'm telling you, this is a hard message for me. Because when I preach it, Pastor Kurt, when I preach it, it's like hitting me right back in the face, right? I'm not going to stand here and tell you, oh, you need to do all this because I've mastered it. Do it like me. I wouldn't even say follow me as I follow Christ on this one because I'm learning. I'm learning this. It's so challenging. But I'm telling you that I think that in these last days, this is what's going to make the church truly successful in helping others discover who Christ is. It's only if we live the love of Jesus is it going to matter. And it's not just living the love of Jesus when things are good. It's when it doesn't matter what things are. That's what people are going to see. That's when they're going to want what we want. And folks, we have it, and it's hard, but it's not. It's not safe, but God is always good. You know that, right? God's not safe. God's crazy. God is, when it comes to God, I promise you, God will never do anything you would do. God's doing a lot of things that we just would never think about. But God is good. God is so good. He's so good, and he's always good, and he wants good for you, and he wants good for me. So it doesn't matter if he's safe. It doesn't matter if I've got to get on an airplane. Oh, big deal, and travel and not sleep on my own bed. Wow, big sacrifice. Especially when I think about what Jesus did for me. Is it really that big? Is it really that hard when I've got guys that are serving their country, giving their lives for our freedom? People say, why do you do what you do? Man, if they're doing that, this is the least I can do, is to help give back to them, and hopefully they'll find wholeness and hope when they get home. You see, there's so much more to life than just our world. And when you experience it, I promise you, it's so amazing. And we experience God at such a bigger level. We experience blessings that go beyond our whatever we could think, ask, or imagine. That's what Paul says. I want that for you. I want it for me. So let's sing from our hearts today. Make this your prayer. I'm not going to close in prayer. Make this your prayer. Make this our closing prayer today as we say, God, please, as we sing this, may we mean it. May it mean something from here, not just here, but here. Make it from here. And let God speak to you about where that begins today, tomorrow, and in the days to come as he leads you to places that he'll bring you through. Amen? Let's sing it like we mean it today.